The scene begins in a bustling emergency room, filled with the hum of machines and the hurried movements of medical staff. The air is thick with urgency as a wealthy, older white woman is rushed in on a stretcher. Her attire and the expensive jewelry adorning her hands suggest her social prominence, while her pale complexion and labored breathing convey the seriousness of her condition. She had collapsed suddenly at an upscale social gathering, prompting the frantic call for emergency assistance. A tall, confident black doctor approaches, his presence commanding, yet composed. He is the attending physician and immediately takes charge of the situation, issuing precise orders to the nurses and technicians. His focus is on stabilizing the patient, his years of expertise evident in his calm demeanor. The medical team moves in sync, trusting his leadership as they prepare to administer the critical care needed to save her life. As the doctor leans closer to assess her condition, the woman regains partial consciousness. Her bleary eyes lock onto his face, and her weak voice cuts through the controlled chaos. "I don't want a black doctor," she mutters, her words faint but dripping with prejudice. Her tone is laced with a mix of fear and disdain, and the statement hangs heavily in the air. The room falls silent for a brief moment, the tension palpable. Nurses and staff exchange uneasy glances, unsure how to react to the blatant racism. A young intern at the woman's side freezes, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusts an IV line. The doctor, however, remains unshaken. Without missing a beat, he looks her directly in the eyes and says firmly but calmly, "Right now, I'm your best chance." Ignoring the sting of her words, the doctor turns his attention back to the monitors, his professionalism unwavering. He doesn't let the insult deter him, nor does he let it influence the quality of care he provides. His focus remains solely on the patient's survival, his every action driven by his commitment to the Hippocratic Oath. The woman, too weak to protest further, drifts in and out of consciousness as the doctor and his team work tirelessly. The tension in the room dissipates slightly as the staff begins to follow his lead, their respect for him overshadowing the uncomfortable reality of the situation. The team works with precision, stabilizing her vital signs and preparing her for emergency surgery. Despite the blatant insult, the doctor's resolve never wavers. His actions speak louder than her words, embodying the very principles of care and compassion that define his profession. For him, the patient's life is paramount, regardless of her prejudices or the discomfort it causes. The staff watches in awe as he navigates the delicate balance of professionalism and grace, his calm demeanor setting the tone for the entire room. This moment, though fleeting, leaves an indelible mark on everyone present. It's not just a test of the doctor's skill, but a testament to his character. As the woman is wheeled into surgery, her fate rests in the hands of the very person she sought to dismiss, a man whose humanity and dedication rise above her prejudice. Little does she know, her journey of survival is about to challenge more than just her physical health. It will force her to confront the biases that nearly cost her her life. The doctor, a man of exceptional talent and unwavering dedication, has earned his place as one of the most respected surgeons in the city. His colleagues admire him not only for his medical expertise but also for his calm demeanor and compassionate approach to patient care. Over the years, he has saved countless lives, often working long hours to ensure his patients receive the best treatment possible. Raised in a challenging environment, the doctor's journey to success was far from easy. He grew up in a low-income neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, and prejudice was a daily reality. Despite the odds, he excelled academically, earning scholarships that allowed him to attend top universities and medical schools. His determination to overcome adversity fueled his ambition to become a surgeon, a field where skill and precision were essential, and where he knew he could make a real difference. Beyond his professional achievements, the doctor is known for his humility and commitment to giving back. He frequently volunteers at free clinics and mentors aspiring medical students from underserved communities. For him, medicine is not just a career but a calling, a way to bridge the gaps created by systemic inequality and provide care to those who might otherwise be overlooked. In stark contrast, the woman on his operating table represents the polar opposite of his life's journey. A wealthy widow and mother of 3, she has spent her life ensconced in privilege. Her upbringing in an elite social circle shielded her from the struggles faced by many, allowing her to maintain a worldview steeped in outdated prejudices. Known for her sharp tongue and unyielding opinions, she has often alienated those who do not conform to her narrow expectations. Her biases, while rarely challenged in her social bubble, have been a source of discomfort for others. From dismissive remarks about service workers to her open disdain for progressive values, her attitude reflects a deep-seated sense of superiority. Even as the world around her has evolved, she has remained stubbornly anchored to her beliefs, unwilling to examine the privilege that shaped her perspective. Yet, behind her cold exterior lies a woman who, like anyone else, is vulnerable to the fragility of life. Her position of privilege has insulated her from many hardships, but it has not made her immune to illness or the unexpected turns of fate. Her collapse at a social gathering was a stark reminder that wealth and social standing cannot shield her from everything. As their worlds collide in the emergency room, the tension between the doctor's commitment to care and the woman's prejudice becomes palpable. For him, her biases are nothing new. He has encountered similar attitudes throughout his career. But for her, being cared for by someone she would typically dismiss forces her into a situation she cannot control. It is a moment fraught with irony, and an opportunity for both of them to confront the assumptions and truths that define their lives. The stage is set for a powerful transformation, as the doctor's unwavering dedication to his craft challenges the woman's deeply ingrained beliefs. The question remains, will she emerge from this experience unchanged, or will the man who saved her life inspire her to rethink the world she thought she knew? The tension in the operating room was palpable, but the doctor remained composed, focusing solely on the task at hand. The woman's earlier protest was still fresh in everyone's mind, but for the doctor, such moments were not new. His years of experience and encounters with similar prejudices had taught him to stay resolute, letting his actions speak louder than words. The surgery was a complex and high-risk procedure. The woman's condition had deteriorated rapidly, and time was of the essence. With his steady hands and unwavering focus, the doctor navigated the intricate process, repairing a ruptured artery that, left untreated, would have led to fatal internal bleeding. The medical team worked seamlessly under his guidance, following his precise instructions as the clock ticked away. Despite the hostility she had shown, the doctor treated the woman with the same level of care and respect he afforded all his patients. For him, her life was no less valuable than anyone else's, and his oath to save lives transcended the boundaries of race, prejudice, or personal beliefs. By the end of the grueling procedure, he had not only saved her life, but also earned the quiet admiration of the surgical team. The surgical staff commended him after the operation, impressed by his professionalism and composure under pressure. One of the nurses remarked, "You didn't even flinch when she made that comment." The doctor simply smiled and replied, "It's not about me. It's about the patient." Several hours later, the woman began to regain consciousness in her private hospital room. As her eyes fluttered open, the first sight she saw was the doctor standing at her bedside, checking her vitals and reviewing her chart. His calm, professional demeanor was a stark contrast to the events earlier in the day. Her initial reaction, however, was anything but grateful. "I told them I didn't want you," she said, her voice weak but laced with the same dismissive tone she had used before. Why didn't they listen? The room fell silent. A nurse nearby froze, unsure of how to respond. The doctor, however, remained unshaken. Without missing a beat, he replied gently, "I understand you might feel that way, but right now, your health and recovery are what matter most." The woman's face betrayed a flicker of confusion, as though she couldn't reconcile her expectations with the reality before her. She shifted uncomfortably, her gaze avoiding his, but the doctor continued to treat her with the same respect and professionalism. "I'm here to ensure you recover fully," he added. "That's my job, and I take it seriously. If there's anything you need, just let the nurses know." As he turned to leave, her expression softened slightly, but she said nothing. The nurse, still standing nearby, exchanged a glance with him, her admiration evident. The doctor nodded quietly, signaling for the nurse to continue monitoring the patient. The incident began to ripple through the hospital as word of the doctor's actions spread. Among the staff, the consensus was clear. The doctor had shown remarkable grace and professionalism in the face of blatant disrespect. Many couldn't help but marvel at his ability to maintain his composure and uphold his commitment to care. Meanwhile, the woman, left alone in her hospital room, began to reflect on the day's events. Her preconceived notions about the doctor clashed with the reality of his actions. He had saved her life without hesitation, despite her protests and dismissive attitude. The gravity of this realization began to weigh on her. In the hallway, the doctor paused for a moment to collect his thoughts. For him, this was not just another day at work. It was a reminder of the challenges he continued to face, even at the pinnacle of his career. Yet he knew his resolve and dedication had the power to break through barriers and plant seeds of change, one life at a time. As the woman begins to regain her strength in the recovery room, the doctor enters to check on her. His demeanor remains calm and professional, but his words carry a quiet firmness. He looks her in the eye and gently informs her that her life was in grave danger, and that, in the critical moments of her care, he was the only surgeon available to intervene. "I didn't choose to save you because of who you are," he says with unwavering composure. "I chose to save you because it's what I do, because everyone deserves the same chance to live." There is no anger in his voice, only a quiet dignity that reflects his character and principles. As he leaves the room, he offers a brief yet pointed remark. "You're welcome, ma'am." The door closes softly behind him, leaving her to process the weight of his words. Alone in the sterile quiet of the hospital room, the woman begins to reflect on what has just occurred. For the first time in years, her assumptions and biases are shaken. The realization that her life was saved by the very person she had dismissed is both humbling and disorienting. The truth, unvarnished and undeniable, sinks in. Her prejudice almost cost her life, and the person she devalued was the one who ensured she lived to see another day. Meanwhile, her 3 adult children, who had been anxiously waiting outside, rush into the room to check on her. They express their relief that she is stable and immediately begin praising the doctor for his extraordinary care. Their gratitude is evident, but beneath it lies a quiet embarrassment. They had heard about their mother's remarks in the emergency room, and it pains them to know how her behavior reflected on their family. "Mom," one of her daughters says softly, her voice tinged with disappointment, "do you realize what you said to the doctor who saved your life? Do you understand how hurtful that was?" The woman looks away, uncomfortable but unable to deny the truth. Her son, more direct, adds, "You've always taught us to be kind and respectful, but today you let your prejudice take over. That man didn't just save you, he showed more grace than most people would have in his position." The confrontation is gentle yet firm, and the woman's children press her to reconsider the way she views the world. They point out how the doctor's professionalism and humanity starkly contrasted with her unwarranted hostility. "Maybe it's time to let go of the things that keep you from seeing people for who they really are," her youngest daughter says. The woman, though initially defensive, begins to soften. The reality of her children's words and the example set by the doctor starts to resonate. The walls of her long-held prejudices, though not fully dismantled, show the first cracks. She remains silent, but her expression betrays a mix of guilt, regret, and a faint glimmer of introspection. Outside the room, the doctor continues his rounds, unaware of the conversation unfolding within. For him, the incident is just another example of the challenges he faces as a black professional, in a world where prejudice often clouds judgment. But his actions speak louder than words ever could. His decision to rise above her hostility and do what was right is a testament to his strength, professionalism, and humanity. The moment marks the beginning of a shift, not just for the woman, but for her family, who now see the need to challenge the biases that had gone unchecked for too long. In the quiet of the hospital room, a seed of change is planted, and though it may take time, the events of the day promise to leave a lasting impact. The woman lay in her hospital bed, her body still weak, but her mind restless. As she listened to the murmurs outside her room, one voice stood out. A nurse telling a colleague about the doctor who had saved her life. The nurse's admiration was evident. "He's incredible," she said. "Dr. Johnson's precision in the operating room and the way he treats every patient with respect. It's why he's the best." The woman felt a pang of discomfort. The memories of her earlier words, spoken in fear and ignorance, replayed in her mind. "I don't want a black doctor," she had said. Yet it was that very man who had acted with grace and professionalism to save her life. She thought about how calm he had remained even when she had treated him with disdain. It was a stark contrast to the panic she had felt, and the realization left her unsettled. Later that day, as the doctor made his rounds, she mustered the courage to ask the nurse to call him to her room. When he walked in, his presence was composed yet commanding. His eyes, steady and kind, met hers without hesitation. The weight of her earlier behavior hung in the air, but he showed no sign of resentment. She hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the hospital blanket. "Dr. Johnson," she began, her voice soft and uncertain, I owe you an apology." He remained silent, giving her the space to continue. "I said things, horrible things, when I didn't know who you were. I was scared, but that's no excuse. You saved my life, and I was too blinded by my own prejudice to see that. I'm sorry." The doctor took a step closer, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for saying that," he said after a moment. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. My job is to save lives, no matter who the patient is or what they believe. That's what I was trained to do." Her eyes welled with tears, a mixture of relief and shame. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You already have," he replied simply. "By reflecting on this moment and being open to change, you're taking the first step." The sincerity of his words caught her off guard. She had expected coldness or indifference, but instead she was met with compassion. It was a moment of unexpected humanity, and it made her see him not as a label, but as the person who had seen her at her most vulnerable and still chosen to help. The doctor didn't linger, knowing she needed time to process. As he left the room, she felt lighter, as though the weight of her guilt had begun to lift. In the days that followed, she replayed their conversation, realizing that her views, once so rigid, could change if she allowed them to. For Dr. Johnson, it was another day's work, but he recognized the importance of their exchange. It wasn't the first time he had encountered prejudice, nor would it be the last, but this time felt different. He hoped the woman's experience would inspire her to reconsider not just her attitude toward him, but toward others as well. As the hospital staff continued to speak highly of him, the woman found herself asking about his life and achievements. She learned of his upbringing, his struggles, and his triumphs. Each story chipped away at the prejudices she had carried for so long. By the time she was discharged, she had resolved to make changes, not just in how she treated others, but in how she used her influence. She knew her apology was only the beginning of a journey toward understanding and accountability. For the doctor, her apology was a reminder of the quiet victories that came from perseverance and empathy. For her, it was a moment of transformation, a chance to grow beyond the limitations of her past beliefs. After weeks of recovery, the woman finds herself reflecting on her experience and the profound impact of the doctor's care. The gravity of what transpired, being saved by someone she had so casually dismissed, forces her to confront the prejudices she has carried for so long. Her children, who had grown weary of her outdated views, seize this opportunity to gently guide her toward change. They encourage her to channel her gratitude into meaningful action, urging her to support causes that align with the values of equity and inclusion. At first, the idea of stepping outside her social bubble is daunting. However, as she begins researching organizations that promote diversity in healthcare and provide scholarships to underrepresented students, she starts to feel a newfound sense of purpose. The same privilege that had once blinded her to the struggles of others now enables her to make a tangible difference. Slowly but surely, she becomes a quiet but dedicated advocate for change. The transformation is not instantaneous or dramatic, but gradual and sincere. Her initial gestures, donating to a fund in the doctor's honor and attending events celebrating diversity in medicine, are small steps that eventually lead to larger commitments. She starts engaging with stories of resilience and triumph from marginalized communities, realizing how much she had missed by clinging to her biases. One day, she finds herself back at the hospital for a routine checkup. While waiting, she notices the doctor leading a group of medical students on their rounds. The students, a vibrant mix of races and backgrounds, hang on his every word as he shares both clinical knowledge and life lessons. The scene is a vivid contrast to the rigid world she had once inhabited, a world where sameness was valued over diversity. Sitting in the hospital garden afterward, she reflects on how different her life has become. The garden is filled with people of all walks of life, each connected by the universal need for care and compassion. For the first time, she feels truly connected to this shared humanity. Watching the doctor mentor his students, she realizes that his dedication extends far beyond her own care. He is shaping a future where health care is equitable and inclusive for all. As she quietly observes, her youngest child joins her, excitedly sharing news of a new scholarship program the family is funding in partnership with the hospital. The program, designed to support underprivileged students pursuing medical careers, will bear her late husband's name, a nod to their family's legacy, but reimagined through a lens of inclusion and hope. The doctor, noticing her from a distance, gives a polite nod before returning to his students. She smiles back, a silent acknowledgment of their shared journey, a journey that has reshaped her understanding of what it means to truly heal. The story concludes with the doctor narrating in voiceover. Healing isn't just about the body, it's about hearts and minds too. Sometimes, the deepest wounds are the ones we don't see. But when compassion meets courage, even those can begin to mend. The camera pans out, showing the woman, the doctor, and the diverse group of students as a symbol of the change that is possible when people confront prejudice with humanity. It is a moment of quiet triumph, both personal and universal, leaving an indelible message. The capacity to heal and grow is boundless when people choose to see each other with open eyes and open hearts.